Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the last 6 months, you surely have heard about the revolutionary new category that was introduced by JVC along with their partner, Maestro. That is, of course, direct replacement, a brand new way of getting end users exactly what they want by upgrading their interface, their screen size in some cases, as well as the features that they long for. This is CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM, all about JVC and Maestro direct replacement. And it starts now. What's going on, guys, and welcome to another CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu, and you are locked into CMA Networks, where we talk mobile electronics day in and day out. We've got a special session for you guys today as we are on the hot topic that is direct replacement. When I remember when this came out, it was absolutely on fire as far as trainings go. It took the industry by storm, and it continues to do so. And today we finally have an opportunity to speak with those that are involved and get you the questions answered that you are burning to know about. Joining me on my journey today, we have three different specialists, including Marcus, who is one of their trainers for JVC, along with Steve Cote, the director of sales for JVC, as well as Matt Yerger, the specialist over at ADS Maestro. And first, I'm going to go to Marcus. Marcus, this is going to be an exciting show. Can you give us a breakdown of what we're going to be talking about?
Hey, Ben, thanks for having us on. We're really excited to be talking about direct replacement. I personally think this is going to change the way we move forward in the industry as car audio and allow us to install head units in more and more vehicles to make sure that our message gets relayed. We have Steve Cote here, the director of sales, and we also have Matt Yerger, who is part of the team over at iDataLink Maestro to help us in this conversation.
All right, we've got a full house, a full panel, and a full conversation about to go down as far as direct replacement goes. But first, an opportunity for our partner SiriusXM to remind you why it's always an amazing add-on sale. And when we come back, let's get into direct replacement. Don't you dare go away.
Hey, Paul here with SiriusXM, and I'd like to talk to you about attachment selling and why the SiriusXM product is one of the best things to add, especially since we don't trade dollars with any other category. I could go through all of this, but let's hear what some of our dealers have to say.
It's an easy add-on that takes, 10, 15 minutes if we're running an antenna, 1 minute if we've got an adapter to plug it into the factory SiriusXM antenna, and it's extra money, so no brainer.
I present it to every customer because a lot of customers don't know what all they can do with Sirius. They don't know what all content they could have. It just makes too much sense not to sell it.
It creates a different customer loyalty and customer security when you explain to them why it's a better experience. Just gets them back in the door, and then the next car, they're already asking for it again. So it just keeps selling itself. It makes more sense.
Well, there you have it. You heard from our dealers. Just remember some of the best practices. Make sure you have one on display so you can demo it. Make sure you're taking advantage of our rewards program, because if you're not taking advantage of that, you're leaving even more money on the table. Make sure you got our POP up on display. And other than that, just make sure you're recommending it.
And welcome back to the show. Introducing our, fabulous panel that we have today. In the top right, we have Marcus over from the JVC training team. Welcome, Marcus. On the bottom left, Matt Yerger, everybody knows who he is, from ADS Maestro, and of course our sales director for JVC for the US, Mr. Steve Cote. Guys, gentlemen, welcome to today's Connected. I am not going to lie to you, we had a lot of planning for this one because there's been so many questions and conversations ever since the launch of the JVC direct replacement program way back, at K-Fest in Vegas. I was there for the launch. I want to go to Steve first for this one. Steve, that was a monumental, epic kind of launch. We also followed suit with that at CMA Expo, but talk to us a little bit about how that went for you as far as launching the whole program.
Well, the prep that we had engaged in prior to the launch was about a year in the making. I think my panel partners would attest, with weekly meetings and a great deal of promotion, so that we drew a lot of attention to this particular event, given the fact that those who were going to attend didn't really know what we had up our sleeve. So we needed to make sure we had a lot of folks in the room, which we did. It was the most successful training that JVC Kenwood had ever conducted at a Knowledge Fest. And frankly, I think it was, ground shaking for those who were in the room, because we let everybody know that in the past, We had vehicles that we had no solution for, 27 of them, as a matter of fact, that we now had an exciting solution for, that the application was no longer something that you put on the car, that got installed in the car, the most elegant execution of a radio replacement in the business. And through our partnership with ADS, we were able to retain an OEM look feel experience that frankly is unparalleled in the industry. You know, there are a lot of folks that had put tablets in cars and that sort of thing, but that's not the same. You can't adjust your heat with a tablet.
Good point.
You can't turn on the seating cooling fan with a tablet. You can't look at your camera with a tablet.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. So, again, congratulations to the entire team. I know that was a lot of work to get to. For the audience that's tuning in that might not be 100% aware of exactly what we're talking about, Marcus, I'm going to lean on you to kind of describe in layman terms why this is a new category and what exactly is the direct replacement product offering.
So I've kind of discussed this a lot in my trainings, and I like to put it like this. You know, we had single DIN as double DIN. Sorry, we had single DIN and double DIN previously, right? And all that time, we were basically making the radio fit the car by adjusting the fitment of the dashboard. You know, a good example of that is like when you take something like the My Ford Touch 8-inch in an F-150 and compare it to the My Ford Touch in a Ford Mustang. What it comes down to, the only difference is the shape of the dashboard. So that constituted having, you know, dozens of kits to address one system essentially. And what direct replacement has changed about that is that we now just replace the components with modular solutions. And then we use the Maestro Apex mounting solution to get our screen to replace the factory screen and put our chassis in place of the factory chassis. And then through the magic of the Maestro programming, we're going to use 100% of the factory OEM controls to operate our radio. So that's really the secret sauce when it comes to direct replacement.
You know, when you say it like that, Marcus, it's actually really simple, but sometimes
Yeah.
the best ideas derive from simple concepts. So that's a great segue to bring ask a question to our good friend Matt over here. You know, preparing for that launch, I can only imagine the type of preparation it took to even operate or to present a project at this level of collaboration, right? I mean, there's so many moving parts, literally. Talk to us a little bit about ADS's part in this and the partnership with JVC leading up to the launch, Matt.
Well, I mean, obviously, JVC and Kenwood's partnership goes back a long time. We've been working together, you know, with the radios for a long time. The kits themselves was a massive undertaking because typically we release 1 or 2 dash kits at a time, and we were talking about releasing 11 dash kits. So, you know, covering a ton of vehicles. We had, you know, weekly meetings constantly to talk about this. And yeah, I mean, it was just a huge project.
Okay, amazing. So let's get into the nitty gritty a little bit. Like I said in the top of the show, I've prepared a bunch of questions that we keep on getting hammered with. So I'm so happy that all of you, because every resource I could possibly ask for is right here on the screen. So let's start with the first question of the conversation. I'm going to go with Marcus, and maybe we can lead off from that. The first question we have, Marcus, is how hard is this unit or this system to install? And this, I guess, is generally speaking.
Well, generally speaking, it's going to reduce the amount of installation time. I would estimate somewhere between 20 and 30%. Because in a normal double DIN or single DIN application, there's oftentimes fitment issues that you have to move the screen in and out a little bit, maybe adjust the kit around. And then even in some of the applications, you actually have to transfer parts from one dash to the aftermarket dashboard. And of course, you have to hardwire everything. You have to make all your connections on the harnesses and such. And with the Apex solution, we're using T harnesses, and everything's going to basically plug in. And we're not having to transfer anything from one dash panel to the next because we're retaining the OEM dash panel. So in most instances, it's going to reduce the installation time quite a bit. In fact, it could be even easier to do a head unit than it has even in the past with very basic vehicles.
All right, very, very cool. That's some good insight. Now, as far as peculiarities with the new units from JVC, we understand that there is an important step to the installation with regards to brain positioning. So I'd like some clarity as to why that is. And maybe, Marcus, you can continue on answering that.
Yeah, so the important thing about setting up a direct replacement receiver is making sure we get the orientation of the chassis correct. There's 3 specific mounting positions. And to make sure you're getting it in the right spot, you want to refer to the installation instructions provided by iData. But essentially, we have our standard vertical. Then we have it where we flip the chassis on its side as horizontal. And then there's another one I like to kind of call bookshelf mounting. But in remote mounting locations, you're going to turn it on its side and it's going to be sideways horizontal. So it's going to be facing up and down like you would put a book in a bookshelf. If it's done incorrectly, our internal gyroscope won't read correctly and you'll get a hard error. So it has been probably the most frequent tech call we've got. In most cases, it's just a matter of maybe just flipping the receiver over to correct the installation error.
Yeah, and I do want to note that we do have JVC has a video on a full installation that shows the setup time, like at that which point of programming to make sure you've got that, brain installed the right way. Now, while we're on that topic of installation, I'm going to go into you now, Matt. Obviously, we've come to expect a certain level of integration and expect a certain level of performance with any Maestro kit, but the Apex kit that is used for this is much more than just T harnesses, right? Talk to us a little bit about what people will expect to see in an Apex kit.
Yeah, so in the Apex kit, you're going to get metal mounting brackets for both the modular chassis and the screen itself. And they will typically be used in conjunction with the factory brackets. So take Ford for an example. When you remove the factory 8-inch screen, you're going to take the factory brackets that mount that 8-inch screen into the dash, and then you basically install them or connect them to our brackets, which are adapters. Essentially, we're adapting our brackets to fit to the aftermarket brackets, allowing it to literally install right into the exact same factory location. Again, you will get the vehicle specific T harness, which is head unit ready, so it'll work with the KEN1 head unit adapter. Most of the kits also include some type of USB adapter or USB hub adapter. And like, again, and going back to Ford is a good example, Ford uses a hub. And obviously, most aftermarket radios cannot read through a hub. So in order to get around that, we provide an entire replacement for that. It's just a dual USB extension that literally plugs right into the back of the JVC chassis, allowing you to retain that factory USB location. And then, of course, you also get an antenna adapter, and we also include a panel tool in the box with every Apex kit.
All right, a panel cool. I like it. It's like a collectible item almost.
Yeah, it says Maestro on it too.
Exactly, I've seen that. So, okay, so let's go a little bit deeper with you, Matt, because these are questions that are coming into us all the time. As far as integration and as far as retention, right? So there's 3 things, and you can speak to them whichever order you want.
Yep.
The first one is about cameras. Do we still keep camera connectivity? The second part is amplifier options. How does that work? And lastly, this is a very unique one, but it keeps popping up. I don't even know what this is. So I'm going to lean on you to explain this to me. But does it retain launch mode for Hellcats, for example? So any which way, those are the 3 questions. What are the answers?
Yeah. So as far as cameras are concerned, in almost every application, we retain the camera. If we don't, we do call that out in the fit guide. A good example of that would be the Wrangler, right? So the Wrangler uses a digital camera, and it needs its own interface to do that. We do not currently have an interface to do that, but we are working on one. But in the meantime, you can either replace the camera with an aftermarket camera or use a third-party camera interface. But that's the only example. I will, mention that early on, when we first released our GM solution, we were unable to retain the front camera on the Corvette. And I think that may be where that question came about. We have since resolved that, and that you can retain the front camera on a Corvette as of now. As far as amplifiers go, again, same circumstance. Like, we retain the factory amplifier in your Fords, all the Chrysler vehicles, Infiniti, Really, the only one that currently would be an issue would be with GM. So GM, if you're in the industry, then GM uses Bose. Bose is based on most, and it's a digitally encrypted amplifier, and so it needs its own interface to retain that factory amplifier. Again, we don't currently have one. We are working on our own solution for that. But again, there are third-party interfaces to be able to retain the factory Bose system. And aside from that, you can also bypass it. These guys are car audio shops. You have the ability to completely bypass the amplifier, sell them a new amplifier and speakers, which obviously is going to be the most ideal scenario. But again, there are ways around it. You can use a third-party interface if the customer is like absolutely dead set on retaining that Bose amplifier. Now, when it comes to the Red Key, Chrysler Red Key vehicles, like the Hellcat, yes. So this is a question that we get all the time. I get this question asked all the time because with both of our solutions, our CHA1, our Grand Cherokee kit, and then our soon to be released Apex S8 CH1, which will be a kit for the Chrysler 300, Charger, and Challenger, which will allow a 10-inch floating screen to be installed. They do all work with the Red Key vehicles, but we currently cannot retain the launch controls, which obviously for some customers is just not acceptable. They're not going to replace the radio if they're going to lose that functionality. We have compiled all the data on how to do that. We are just working on a way to implement it into a Maestro compatible radio so that the customer will still have access and control over that. I don't have necessarily an ETA on that. I can just tell you that we're actively working on it. It is something that we've prioritized as important because of how many questions we got on it. But I would say in the not too distant future, yes, we will support launch controls with those vehicles.
All right. Very well done. Thank you for that insight. I did forget one more, which I think we're going to bring up right now before I switch my next question to Marcus. I remember you talking a lot about the new Mic 1 from ABS. And where does this come into play as far as, connecting a microphone for, your Apple CarPlay and your, connectivity that in that sense? What is the importance and what is that all about?
So the Mic 1 is kind of the first interface of its kind. In the past, I know we've tried adapting the factory microphone to just, literally just using an adapter to plug it in, and it never works. It sounds horrible. And so really to do this effectively, to retain a factory Bluetooth mic to work on an aftermarket radio requires a module that will essentially tune that microphone to work on the aftermarket radio, because every aftermarket radio has some different method of how they tune their microphone, a different gain level, a different algorithm for noise canceling, and all of that. And so essentially what the Mic 1 does is you flash it for the vehicle that you're installing it into, and then also the radio that you're connecting it to. And then again, it's essentially tuning that microphone to work on the aftermarket radio. And obviously there's a lot of benefits here. One being it looks nicer, right? Most customers are going to prefer the look of the OEM microphone over an aftermarket microphone. But probably more importantly is the install time, right? We've made our installation so easy through the use of our T-harness, but you still have to run that microphone up to the headliner. And that is very time consuming. Depending on the vehicle, it can be really time consuming. By using the Mic 1, it literally just connects to our T-harness, right? So no more running of a wire. You literally just flash it and connect it to the T-harness on our bench, and that's it. It installs with the RR and the T-harness. So it's a super easy install. Now, as far as when is this going to be available, I know our shipment of them, we're waiting on it. It's literally due in like any day now. Now, I know we do want to do some product testing in field. So if anybody wants to do that from a retailer standpoint, you can reach out to us. I think we're going to make a post on iData Tech, our Facebook group, looking for anybody that might be interested in maybe doing some testing before we actually release it. But we are getting very close.
Very, very cool. And how frustrating is it sometimes that last little piece of wire for the mic peeps out afterwards?
I know.
Those clips sometimes to get to where those micros go, it's terrible. All right, great. Thank you for that clarity. All right, going back to the JVC side of things, Marcus, when it comes to options, right? Really, all we're talking about from a JVC perspective are 2 units. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I understood. And within those 2 units, we're talking about an 8-inch option as well as a
Mhm.
10-inch option. Are there
Yes.
situations where you can choose between the 2?
So in general, either the application is designed for the S8 screen or it's designed for the floating panel. So one way we like to put it is, we don't want to. We use a 10-inch screen to replace smaller screens like a 4-inch, a 7-inch, and then on the Chryslers they have an 8.4. So we again don't want to compromise in any way, shape, or form. So we're going to offer that 10-inch for the larger screens as well. Now, with one exception, the S8 FO1, it actually has the ability to do an 8-inch screen in those 4 dashes. Most of the 4 dashes, I think all except for 3 of the 4 dashes have the clearance, but you can option to use the 10-inch in those as well. So in general, most kits are either designed to be a floating kit or a flush mount S8 kit, but the S8 FO1 gives us the latitude to choose because it includes the brackets for both a 10-inch or an 8-inch, and that vehicle can accept either or.
All right, thank you.
And if I can add to that, it
Absolutely.
actually is both the S8 FO1 and S8 FO2. So the S8 FO2 is for the earlier generation Ford. So like 2007, when they first started doing the 8-inch screen, it was like nav with sync. And then obviously all of your My Ford Touch vehicles. We pretty much offer you the ability to do your choice of the 8-inch or the 10-inch, with the exception of like the Escape, the C-Max, which have that very curved dash, which won't allow you to do it. But pretty much all of them, you can do it.
All right, all right. So if you guys are tuning in, of course, we're having an in-depth conversation about the new direct replacement from JVC in collaboration with iDataLink Maestro. I've only got a couple questions, and of course, I'm going to end this conversation. Why we brought Steven here is also talking about the sales side. But before we get to that exciting part, I do have another important question. This one is probably the number one question. The question is, how do I know if an Apex kit is available for my car? Who wants to take that question? What's the best way for me to kind of find that information?
I'm guessing that would probably be me, because...
All right, go for it, Matt. Tell us, how do I find it? How do I know?
Yeah, so you want to go to iDataLinkMaestro.com, and you're just going to use our fit guide, as most retailers have used our fit guides for all of our solutions. It's going to be no different. You're going to enter the year, make, and model of the car. It's going to ask you if you want to do amp or radio replacement. When you select radio replacement, it's going to ask you if you want to do a traditional or classic dash kit. That would be like a standard double DIN dash kit, or our Apex Advanced Dash integration. So you will basically have your choice. Now, if we don't make an Apex kit, it's not even going to give you that option. It's just going to show you the classic dash kits. But if we do make it a solution, and most of the solutions that we make Apex kits for, we also make classic dash kits for. So you'll have to just choose. But after you choose Apex, it's going to show you the kit you need, and then all the option or the required accessories that you need to go along with it.
All right, sounds simple enough. All right, Steve, let's talk business for a second, because obviously with a new category becomes opportunity. But I want to go a little bit deeper than just saying comes opportunity. Let's define what that actually means. So let's start from the beginning. Since the launch of this new category, what has been the impact on retailers and their business?
Let me give you a concrete example. I was on a meeting yesterday, video meeting, with a significant retailer who was recounting their experience since launch of having installed 6 systems into Ford products, all of which went flawlessly. Customers left very happy, allowed that retailer to make a sale that was considerably more money than traditionally they would have netted from that sale. But more importantly, the customer was happier. The experience was better. The customer had more trust and faith in the retailer. Everybody won. Everybody won. And frankly, success here is going to be granted to those who decide to pitch this solution as the ultimate solution, the best solution for replacing a radio in a car and the applications that are available. Because we don't install on the dash, we install in the dash. We're integral to the car. We actually created a product in conjunction with ADS that allows an experience that had yet existed in a lot of applications. So the customer comes in not really understanding what's possible. And when you show them the best answer to their dilemma, their question, they're fulfilling their need, they leave happier and they're happy to spend the money. This retailer wasn't in a significant metropolitan area. And the only difference between them and others that I've spoken to was they asked for the sale. They presented the product. I think it's huge. Not to mention the fact that, and none of this has been spoken about, iData has information with regard to flashes that show where the spike in radio replacement is in terms of the model year of production of cars. That's usually about 10 years back, right? So if you look at where the traditional single and double DIN radios fit in the production of 2015 cars, we fit in about 50% of those dashes. With this solution that we've brought to bear, that iData Maestro has facilitated, we now have applications for 90% of the production in 2015. When you look at 2022, we only had the ability to put radios in 19% of the production that was done in 2022. We now have the ability to put radios in 70% of the production. What I'm saying is that the radio business traditionally, with traditional form factors, was shrinking, and this propels it back up. This gives the retailer an opportunity to make a sale where no sale was possible before. It's huge, huge.
On that note, that is some incredible information. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I want to reflect on something here. You mentioned the word opportunity. I also want to circle back on value proposition for a second. And this is something that it took me some time to realize, but follow me on this, right? The customer comes into the store because they want a couple of things. Maybe they want better sound. Maybe they just don't feel good about their tiny little screen in their car because their buddy has a much bigger one. Maybe they want Apple CarPlay. The reasons are numerous. However, here's the value proposition I want to talk about. Before, you had to first find out, like you said, do we even make something that fits into that vehicle? B, how much does it cost for that kit, the plastics, the molding, and all this stuff that needs to happen to even get the radio into the vehicle? Well, Apex kind of flips this on its head. And Matt, I want you to speak to this. Talk to me about, from a dealer perspective, inventory, because we all seen the dusty bags of kits on the back wall of a car audio shop. So talk to us a little bit about how that has completely changed with Apex.
Yeah, so I think one of our goals with Apex was, how do we reduce the number of dash kits required to fit in all these vehicles? I mean, Ford is again, I keep going back to Ford, but it's a great example. If you look at Ford vehicles, especially the ones that came with a 4-inch screen, and even the ones that came with an 8-inch screen, they all require a kit specific to that vehicle. So you're going to have one for the F-150 or two for the F-150. You're going to have one for the Mustang. You're going to have one for the Edge and the Explorer. Now, from a retailer's perspective, these kits are expensive, right? They're costly. They're costly to the consumer. They take up a lot of space in your shop. And so our goal with Apex is, how do we condense all of these kits down into just a few SKUs? And that's kind of the goal, one of the goals we set out to achieve. And we did that. So, if you look at Ford, again, with the 4-inch screen, we have one kit that covers all of them, right? So now, instead of having 10 kits on your wall and just hoping that customer is going to come in, you're going to carry one kit that's going to cover all those vehicles, right? And on top of that, the kits themselves, because there's no plastics, we're retaining the factory bezel that's in the car. So it's an OEM bezel that's already in the car. Because we're retaining that, there's no plastics. It's just metal brackets and the T-harness. And so the kit cost is reduced. And not only is it reduced for you as the retailer, but it's also reduced to the consumer. There's one thing that consumers don't like buying, and that's parts. They don't understand why they need parts, right? If we reduce the cost of the parts, that means they can spend more money on the radio, which is where they want to put their money.
Those are all good points, Matt. Not to mention, speaking to the business owners that are going to be watching this, many shops that I go in, I'm going to say the majority of shops I go in have a wall of kits, right? Wall of plastic hanging in a bag. And the most you can hope for in terms of return out of that wall of plastic is to have your installer come out and pick up a bag off the wall and walk back into the install bay to go install that plastic in the car. Now, you're paying rent for that wall. It's called gross margin return on investment is what we're talking about here. So what if I could take the majority of that plastic wall that no consumer ever interacts with, average sale of which, any of those bags is probably $10 to $15, and replace it with the opportunity to make a $2,500 sale. All of a sudden, the return on your investment in rent and electricity and staff and inventory is propelled astronomically. Why wouldn't you want to do that? I think that ADS has created such an opportunity by consolidating parts and the opportunity to not screw around with the dash plastic, because most customers buy their car for the driving experience that they have when they try it out, right? You get in the car, you look around, you look at the dash, everything's cool, this is what you like, that's why you buy the car. And then when you go into a car audio shop, up until this point, the installer says, well, this trim bezel and the knobs, I'm going to move all that, right? I'm going to change everything that you liked about the car, I'm going to mess with it. But it'll be okay. You'll like that. And the consumer doesn't like that. Every one of us, everybody that's watching this has some contact with someone that says, I don't want to change any of the radios in my car because I want it to have that OEM feel and look. That's why they bought the car. So the car stereo installation experience up until this point invalidated your decision as a car customer. Now we're going to validate that decision by the dash alone, by putting the controls on the screen, just like in a Ram vehicle. It's the way to go.
I want to take this opportunity and thank my esteemed guests today, both Marcus from JVC as well as Steve Cote from JVC as well, and of course, Matt Yerger from ADS. Listen, if you want more information, there's a lot of links to go here. Of course, you can go to the JVC's website to check out the different solutions and also check out the iDataLink website as well. Matt mentioned how to best search for the application, so definitely follow his instruction on that. On that note, here's my takeaway. There is no doubt in my mind, or anybody's mind, in fact, that this is an exciting new category that's being introduced by both JVC as well as ADS. Why? Well, for three main reasons. Number one, it simply brings business back into our industry. The simple fact that there are now applications for vehicles that did not have solutions before in itself is a huge leap forward for opportunity for our retailers. The second part is this is a huge win for users. End users that want the features, that want the upgrade, that want the experience now have that option as well. And the third win, I think, is for the businesses, whether it's from an inventory standpoint or an ease of installation standpoint. You can now do one thing that will help your business out, and that is say yes to the customer. We can help you with that. And with that, I do encourage you to dig in. This is a huge program with a lot of legs and a lot of new things coming down the pipe. I'm sure there's more applications coming down, but stay tuned because direct replacement is here, and I think it's here to stay. That's it for this CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Until next time, we connect.